I wanted to talk about this story because I saw a lot of debate online about this story, and I wanted to express my opinion about it. And I know it might make some people upset, especially maybe certain people in the pro-Ukraine crowd, but I have to express it because, you know, I'm unfiltered. I gotta be unfiltered about my opinions, and I don't want to hold it back. So in the Latvian capital, in Latvia, what they're doing, this story is about the Latvian capital specifically, is they're going through people who have lived in Latvia for like 50, 60, who know how many years, and don't know the national language. They don't know Latvian, and they're making them take a test. And if they don't pass it, there's a decent chance that they can be expelled from the country, deported, after living in the country for 30, 40, 50 years. Let's watch this Reuters piece about what's going on.
Speaking Russian in Latvia has not been a problem until now. About a fourth of the country's population is ethnically Russian, and it was generally accepted to have Russian as a person's only language. But the war in Ukraine has entirely changed the picture. When Moscow began its Ukraine invasion, Latvia switched off Russian TV channels and crushed a Soviet World War II monument. It has also started working towards eliminating education in Russian. And now in the capital Riga, dozens of elderly Russians wait to take a basic Latvian language test as a proof of loyalty to a country where they have lived for decades. They fear they may be deported if they fail. 70-year-old Valentina Sevastianova is taking a 3-month crash course in Latvian.
Despite concerns, I have faith that Latvia is a democratic state and will not resort to mass deportations. Furthermore, I have no other place to go, as I've resided here for 40 years. Although I was born in Belarus, I obtained Russian citizenship only to visit my ailing parents who needed my care at the time.
Last year saw a growing rift between the country's Latvian majority and its Russian-speaking minority over their place in society. There was widespread anger over former Soviet master Moscow's invasion in Ukraine. And after the country's 2022 election campaign, which was dominated by questions of national identity, State Secretary Dmitry Trofimov said the government has demanded 20,000 people sit through language exams.
If we make the difference between emotions and legal regulation, we understand. If you are citizen of another state, you are under protection. Also under social protection and other kind of protection of another state. If you want to be and want to reside in other state, you have to be in compliance with the immigration law.
He said Russian citizens under 75 who do not pass the test by the end of the year will be given reasonable time to leave. If not, they could face forced expulsion.
Okay, I'm gonna be for real. There are so many other ways that you can try to get people to learn Latvian outside of like deporting them, right? Because the main goal of the policy, I assume, is in reaction to the fact, and this is an understandable concern, that Russia invaded Ukraine based on the idea of saving the Russian-speaking population, right? It's complete bullshit, but that was the idea. We've seen on Russian state TV them talk about certain other interests in Kazakhstan and in other countries that have Russian-speaking populations, including Latvia, and we've seen justification built by the Russian state and by Putin himself in the speech he made to invade Ukraine, to not only invade countries based upon the language, but also to invade countries based upon them being post-Soviet states, right? So I understand the concern about having a large portion of primarily Russian speakers in your borders, if that could be used as a tool against you to then invade your country. First off, Latvia has NATO protection, and while that shouldn't be the only thing they use to protect themselves, they need to have a standing military, they need to have other things to protect themselves. They can do this in so many other ways when it comes to promoting their national language, when it comes to like mandatory schools for youngsters. Even if they wanted to take some of the more extremist, quote unquote, extremist policies when it comes to shutting down Russian schools and stuff like that, which I would not look upon more favorably, right? I can understand if those schools are directly funded by the Russian state or if those schools are directly controlled and influenced by the Russian state. But this policy, to me, just feels inhumane. I don't think it helps anyone. I don't think it's saving like Latvia's, its sovereignty, and the generations that these people produce after them in Latvia will learn the language, as is often the case in the United States. In the United States, there is a lot of old Mexican grandparents and old Latin American grandparents who don't speak a lick of English, brought their kids to this country, but their kids learned English and their kids' kids learned English. And now 2-3 generations down, they're completely assimilated to the country. They completely know the home country's English. And a lot of them don't even know the languages of the countries that their grandparents came from. And I have no reason to believe that similar process could not also conduct itself in Latvia, without needing to deport people for not knowing the language at the age of 40 when they have no homes to return to. So I'm going to be completely honest. I don't like this policy, man. I don't like it. I mean, some of these people are going to be deported with no homes in the countries that they're going to be deported to. No clue on what they're going to do. They're going to have to completely start over their life. Now, I will say that they were living in Latvia for 40-something years, right? They should probably know the language by now. And so I will say, of course, some of the responsibility lies upon them to learn the language, and maybe even having mandatory classes and stuff like that. I can understand that in some world. But to deport them over this, I think it is honestly somewhat backward. Will Ukraine do similar stuff to Russians if taking back Crimea goes into place? I don't think it's going to be they deport people for speaking Russian or not knowing Ukrainian, because I know a lot of Ukrainians that don't know how to speak Ukrainian. It would just be impossible to enforce, and I see zero interest from Zelensky's government to do such a thing. I do think that there would be a chance that they would deport people who have settled in the homes of those who have fled in Crimea over the last 8 years. That I could see happening. Because we see the Russians trying to do something similar in Mariupol right now, as they're trying to settle people from the Russian Federation in Mariupol in the homes of those who have fled the fighting. That I could see is a lot more likely. They've already said they would deport anyone who came since 2014. Exactly, yeah. That is a lot more in the realm of possibility. And it's also different. These are people who have lived in Latvia and moved to Latvia or were in Latvia when the state was established, not people who came to Latvia, stole somebody else's house, and then, just lived there saying, you need to live by our rules. You need to speak Russian. You need to do that. Once the Latvian state was established, that age was over.